I'd like to show you how to use one shot to varnish an egg by dipping. So this is a quart amount of one shot. I actually don't dip out of this. I like to transfer it to something else, and I usually do about a quarter of it at a time. This stuff is kind of stinky, and so I actually have it in a like a tin, in a, I just call this a Chinese soup container, in a container, and that way I'm not opening the can of one shot regularly. It's staying, you know, most of this is staying pristine, and I am, you know, not letting it, it's not evaporating and drying out on me. This can be found online. It was hard to find. It's gotten a little bit easier to find. It's the Speed Dry UV Clear 4005. And as I said, a quart will last you a really long time. It is stinky, so I would recommend you do it outside. My husband has built me this lovely like fume hood that's cardboard with a plexiglass lid that lives between my stove and my microwave, and I have the fan on the microwave, and so the fumes are getting pulled outside. So I would recommend that you do this outside or with a respirator or in some kind of situation like this where the fumes can be pulled out. So I'm going to take an egg. This is an egg that has been, oh, that one's got a small hole. An egg that has been finished and the wax has been removed. And I'm going to take a skewer, just your, you know, shish kebab skewer. And what I do is, because it does drip a little bit, I put the skewer onto a piece of paper Kleenex, and this is something that I've actually already used. This is what I use to remove the wax off of my egg, and so I'm giving it a second life. So I'm going to skewer it, and then I just kind of fold it up and I tape it a little bit so that it stays stuck onto the skewer. Note that I'm going to put the pointy end down, and the blunt end is going to be what goes into the egg. Then you want to have something that the skewer can sit into while the varnish is drying. So this is a piece of like construction rigid foam, styrofoam, that does happen to be foil covered, but I like to cover it with foil as well. You can use any other kind of rigid foam, but do know that the varnish, any drips of the varnish will eat through the foam. So that's why I cover it with aluminum foil, just tape it on, and then I can replace that aluminum foil as I go. So I'm gonna put that in my fume hood. I'm gonna open up my varnish, and I just kind of dip into it and then rotate it a little bit, and then hold it over the varnish so that it's going to drip most of its excess back into my container of one shot. I actually have a little spot here that I can have it sit while it drips off, and I'm going to get my next paper towel and skewer, Kleenex and skewer set up ready for my next egg. Because this is a little bit of a setup, I usually wait till I have about a dozen Pissinkia ready to varnish all at once. I don't usually do just one at a time. If I had a permanent setup, I might have this be one of the, you know, finish it and varnish it, but I do need to use my kitchen every once in a while. So that looks like it is finished dripping for the most part, so I'm going to give it a little tap, and then I'm going to just, once it's stopped dripping, stick it into one of the holes and let it sit for a little bit. I do like to kind of give it a spin, let the varnish kind of center around there, and then I will take a pointy little stick, like a toothpick kind of thing, and try to pull some of that varnish on the skewer down and off the egg, getting anything that's pooling at the bottom to come down the stick. And then there are some little air bubbles at the top of the varnish, so I also use this little stick to kind of push the air bubbles off to the side so that I can get my next egg ready. I don't want those air bubbles to be on my next egg. So I'm going to take my next egg, my skewer's all ready. This does mean that you need to have a fairly decent sized hole on your egg. If you wanted to do a smaller hole, you could use some kind of floral wire. Just make sure there are different stiffnesses of floral wire, so you want to make sure that you get floral wire that is stiff enough that it's not going to bend with the weight of a large egg. So I'm going to let this one drip, get my next skewer ready to go. And I kind of check on these as as this one's dripping, I'll check on this one, make sure that it's not puddling anywhere. If it's starting to puddle around the bottom of the egg, I will use my stick and pull it down the side, pull it down the skewer. But this one's looking pretty good. And once this is dripped, then I'm gonna put it here and let it dry. And I'll let it dry here until it's about, maybe about 20 minutes, till I can just touch it without it being tacky. All right, that has stopped dripping. So I'm gonna stick that one here. Again, kind of spin it to get the initial flow going down the stick and kind of pulling any extra dripping varnish down. And then using that stick to push any air bubbles that are on the surface off to the side. Once the varnish is dry to the touch, so I can touch it and I'm not getting stuck to it, I will take it off the original skewer and I kind of just hold onto it and spin the stick gently, get that stick out of the way and have a new skewer. And that way the varnish does not slide down the skewer, or it has slid down the skewer, but the varnish that has slid down the skewer will not permanently adhere the egg to the skewer. And so I will go through, once I've got my whole, all of them done, I will go through and I will spin this off and put it on a skewer, on a fresh skewer. And these fresh skewers I can reuse again, whereas these are all sticky, so I'm gonna throw these in the trash. And they poke out like porcupines, my husband loves it. So that's pretty much it. I like to let them cure for at least 24 hours on their, I always think of them as like little tulips or lollipops. Let them sit on their sticks for 24 hours at least, maybe even longer if it's a warm or a humid day. And that's varnishing with one shot dipping. Thanks for watching.
So to recap, we're going to use a skewer, put a piece of tissue onto it with some Scotch tape. The tissue will catch the drips, and this one happens to be one that I've used to remove the wax from the egg, so it's getting a second life. The egg is going onto the blunt end of the stick, and then I'm going to dip it into the one shot and kind of swirl it to make sure it gets everywhere, and then let it drip for a while. Then once it's done dripping, we're going to kind of shake it off, catch that last drip, and stick it into the foil-covered rigid foam where it's going to sit. And I'm going to use a wooden pick to pull as much of the dripping varnish down as I can, to try to get the varnish away from the egg and drip down the hole and into the tissue. And then make sure that if you're dipping another egg soon, that you remove the air bubbles and kind of slide them away from the surface of the one shot. Once it's been setting up for maybe 20 minutes, you can remove the egg from the skewer, spin it around, especially if there's a bubble that's formed at the bottom. Spin the skewer off and put a new one on to dry, and that way the varnish won't stick to the stick.